Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Gotta let it go. Fast to freedom. Dance tonight together. Hear everybody singing. You can't know what your part. Don't be far more what the show.
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for March 6, 2025. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find us on the Voices of Wrestling podcast feed or on our own dedicated Open the Voice Gate feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can follow us on social media at Open Voice Gate. If you'd like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red boxes as sponsors podcast, and you can set up a one-time or recurring donation. No obligation whatsoever. But we would like to thank all of our previous donors. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal, Mike Spears, joined alongside your other host, Case Lowe. In case somehow, if with how everything is going, we managed to have 4 basically live Dragon Gate shows to kick off this month over 5 days. How are you holding up after this sudden content influx?
I feel like KZ versus YAMATO happened 6 months ago.
Yeah, I know. It feels like that it was Saturday, but Saturday might as well be, Luka was still in the Mavericks on Saturday,
Yeah, I don't know what it was about this week that I had to remind myself today that the Torneo de Escuelas finals from CMLL was only a week ago. In my head, that was, again, 6 months ago. YAMATO versus KZ 6 months ago. I was emailing some people about YAMATO versus KZ today, and when I started the email, I had to remind myself that, no, this is still timely. People can still talk about this. This isn't woefully out of date. I don't know if it's specifically related to the Dragon Gate calendar or just whatever it is, but it's been a lot of things in a few days. But it's a good problem to have, to have 2 live Osaka shows, the Korakuen show, and then what we got, the bonus Rey de Parejas content on the Dragon Gate Network. A lot to talk about, a very busy week in Dragon Gate.
Right, and I feel like in a lot of ways, you combine all of the shows that we had and all of the events, you have a very kind of fascinating time in the promotion, especially with Rey de Parejas getting underway. But there were a couple things that I felt like were more leading topics than just the Dragon Gate Tag Team League. And I think first and foremost is the on March 1st at the Truth Gate show. So first, I feel like we might detour a second case. So this is what Champ Gate is now. Like, we have an end of a tour and a kickoff of Rey de Parejas. Like, that is where we are in 2025 with Dragon Gate case.
Yeah, and that, this is something that I would not say to get used to, because I think the calendar is going to be entirely different next year as well. But with there not being really a Brave Gate champion, which I will have to take the L on that one. I thought the YAMATO storyline of him not defending the Brave Gate belt was going to go somewhere, and instead he was very literal, and he really meant it when he said that the Brave Gate belt would just be on the shelf until he basically felt like defending it. But between the changing of venues and changing of schedule as the year goes on, and the lack of 4 proper champions, what we got here was a Truth Gate show with a Dream Gate match, and then the kickoff of Rey de Parejas the next day. And all told, I don't know. I feel like I did not like these Osaka shows as much as everybody else.
And I think that it's like bearing, like it's worth noting that the move from Champion Gate to this format, and some of it is pushed because of the logistics about Edion Arena Osaka and that complex that's going to be undergoing for the next 18 months, and part of it is just how you laid out. I mean, we've basically been seeing like, okay, a twin gate match here, a triangle gate match here, a dream gate match here. You have not had the bundling of like the first major like title matches of the year. We don't really have that anymore with Champion Gate, and I think that has ended up being like a noticeable decline within the weekend and the shows, is the fact that at least within the markets, the Champion Gate kind of conceit going away from it. I think there is definitively a year-on-year drop for that, and it does kind of in a way, and we countered it a little bit last year, Case, when we had Champion Gate night 1 and then this Gate of Nostalgia night 2, but we've kind of seen now like moving in this kind of maybe direction, at least for the Kansai native fans. I mean, you're kind of lost a special weekend, and it's kind of now you have a Dreamgate match, and then really what it is 2 days in Osaka.
It's strange. We knew Gate of Nostalgia last year was going to pop a number, and then Champion Gate last year, the one night of Champion Gate, was either flat or maybe just slightly down from Gate of Nostalgia, but it kind of did what we thought. And then this year, I was so surprised after the first night to look at the attendance number, which was, to have it exactly, was 745 people. I was so surprised because I thought the building looked really good. It looked like they had really packed that place. And then I go on the Gaiora website a few days later to look at the results, and they have it marked as a sellout. And then the next night, the kickoff of Rey de Parejas, to have the exact number there, they announced it was 778 people, and again marked it as a sellout. So I don't fully know what to do with that. I go back to
Right.
some of the Osaka shows, 2022, which is still for Japan very COVID-y, and then 2023 really through the latter part of that year. And they were certainly having shows in Osaka that did not look this good. I was so surprised to see those numbers not in the 4 digits. And so, it's obviously a decline. There's no spin there. There's nothing to make of that. I find the sellout demarcation to be slightly interesting. I don't know if that's a change in configuration. I don't know if that's an own goal where Dragon Gate maybe just cut off ticket sales at a certain point, and then they couldn't reach last year's number. I don't know what that is. I do know that I thought the shows were lively. I thought the crowds were super hot, especially for the matches that really mattered. And I thought the building looked good. So obviously a decline. There's no spin from that. But also, I don't feel, and you tell me if you disagree, but I don't look at this as any sort of disaster.
I don't look at it as a disaster. I do, though. I mean, we were talking privately, Case. You have a match that's as good as Yamato versus KZ. You have a program that you've really, I would say that if we were going to grade the booking of the Dreamgate division, at least like comparatively, like this is easily like how the Dragon Gate booking has improved the most over the last 24 months. But you kind of have a takeaway where it's like, yeah, no, like Yamato's the wall. Yamato is the man, and he feels like the man, and especially in a match like this. But you do kind of go like, man, you played every single card, and this is what you got, and that's kind of a little bit of a bitter pill, I feel like, when you have a match that was as really I looked out this weekend, Case. Very rarely do I end up when we have these double headers with what ends up being the more like noteworthy show or most noteworthy match. But I'm still 5 days later completely enamored with this Yamato versus KZ Dreamgate match that happened on March 1st.
I promise I have no personal bias against KZ, but if you go back and look at the records, you not only reviewed this match, but you got the chance to review the Mochizuki versus KZ match from 2018 when you filled in for me there as well. So I would say 2 of KZ's most important matches in his career, you have the written documentation of. So a tip of the cap to you.
I didn't even remember that from 7 years ago.
Well, I always make note of it because I feel like I link that match in so many reviews, and as time has gone on, I remember watching that match, and I don't remember what I had going on. I just remember watching it way later than everybody else, and at that point, you were doing primarily solo audio, and I maybe hopped on for World that year, but it's not like you and I were doing a ton of audio together. So you did the review, you did the audio. I didn't have any deadline to hit for that, so I might have watched that match like a week and a half after everybody else, and was like, oh my god, what was I doing? But yeah, no, you've covered some of the big moments in KZ's career, and yeah, it's I guess big picture about this weekend. Just before we dive into what was I feel a low end match of the year contender with Yamato and KZ.
Mhm.
I did not like these Osaka shows as much as I think a lot of other people did. And I think the attendance reflects sort of this larger point that I'm about to make, which is that, hey, these shows were a little boring. And if you go back and look at what we really thought was this great run of shows from the July Korakuen through the December Korakuen, the December Korakuens, plural, they felt really busy. They felt really chaotic. There wasn't a ton of dead weight on those shows. They had a few mid-card angles, a few undercard angles. Things were really happening. And I think part of the reason that I had a hard time sinking my teeth into these Osaka shows, especially this first one, is you've got the first 4 matches on this show that mean absolutely nothing. We're just
Yeah.
completely irrelevant. And so if you're somebody that is not enamored with the undercard, let's give a blanket statement and say that Yuki Yoshioka is not your guy, and the result of the Dreamgate match, because everybody knew the result of the Dreamgate match. Like, I understand sitting this one out. It goes back to your point that Champion Gate for a very long time was sort of a dedicated special weekend in Osaka where you knew you were getting a premium offering. I don't feel like this weekend was a premium offering. I thought the Korakuen card was much better. The Korakuen card actually over-delivered. I liked that card on paper, and then it really impressed me in action. The Osaka shows, I thought, sort of illuminated a 2025 specific issue. It's like Ryo Saito has done the inverse with his booking patterns. For the longest time, you and I would complain about how he was a really good booker matches 1 through 6, and then he would get really cute and overcomplicate match number 7, the Dreamgate title scene. And it really hindered, I think, the image of this company, if not more so than the growth, but definitely the public perception of Dragon Gate at the time.
And it's still been something that they still kind of feel pains about.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But as we've turned the corner into 2025, starting with the premium singles matches in Cork and that one-on-one show and everything since, I do feel like, especially if you're somebody that's not invested in Yanagiuchi, Sahara, Mochizuki, and I'll throw his name in there, Ryofuda. If you're not interested in the story that those guys are telling, you really haven't been offered much on these Dragon Gate shows outside of what Yamato was doing. And as we talked about a few weeks ago, the build to Yamato versus Strong Machine J was so interesting because I think Strong Machine J at least had a legitimate chance of winning the title. There was intrigue in whether or not J could hang in a main event title match like that. And I just thought the booking was very compelling. And with Yamato versus KZ, whereas there was question as to what the end quality, the end result of Yamato versus Strong Machine J was going to be, we knew Yamato versus KZ was going to be a great match. We knew Yamato was going to win. And as a result, the build just wasn't that engaging. So now you're really putting a lot of weight on Yuki Yoshioka. Can you draw a ginormous house? And I think what we got was a decline, not a disaster by any means, but also nothing that is any reason to celebrate. Whereas the Korakuen card, just to sort of round out this big picture thought here, the Korakuen I thought was an injection of life and an injection of story and a much needed pivot. Had we recorded on Tuesday prior to that Korakuen show, I would have sounded so down on Dragon Gate. These Osaka shows, even with the great matches, and there were a few of them, left a pretty bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, and I think you look at some things that if we treat this first week of March as 2 halves, really, like, what happened, and we'll go deeper into the Yoshioka return and the overall decourage Dia Inferno and that becoming now a major storyline. You didn't have that for the first half of those shows. You didn't have that for the Osaka doubleheader. The whole Dia Inferno 2 storyline kind of was only just started. Like if you just watched the show on Saturday, you'd be like, oh, I guess Shun was just getting underneath D Courage's skin, especially Yoshioka's skin. But by the end of Yokohama, it is very clear now what the direction at least is for that half of Z-Brats. You don't have that in the first parts of the shows, and I feel like that kind of filled out the major out of main event kind of picture stuff, because it kind of became the color of the rest of the week, whereas we didn't have that in Osaka.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
So KZ versus Yamato. Yamato retains, gets his 6th Dream Key of his defense with Ragnarok. I think the thing that really still resonates with me in this match was like the moment that Yamato decided, I don't like the direction that this match is going with KZ. He's getting a little too cute with these Yave holds. Let's go and brawl on the outside, and then I'm going to have to kind of get like my puncher's chance here. And I thought that led to a really fascinating Dreamgate match, and at least for me, easily one of Yamato's best Dreamgate matches of his entire career. But I think when you were talking about how this title program kind of works, like a little bit of this in a way feels like, okay, in 2015, Shingo's defending against Masaki Mochizuki. Like, of course, we're like, those two guys were tremendous in 2015. They're going to have an amazing match. And that's what happened. And I feel like maybe now, a couple days later, that's now like the expectations of this being like a strong match and it achieving its expectations, but not necessarily, I guess, becoming otherworldly might be the thing that hampers this match when match of the year conversations start to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have the external buzz that will need.
The permanence. Yeah,
it doesn't have that. Now, that could change. We'll see what Dave has to say in the Observer. It might pick up a second win here, but no, to me, it's one of the best matches I've seen this year. I mean, I go and look at my match of the year tracking here, and it's better than anything I've seen in CMLL this year, although they've had a number of high-end things. I would have it, on the level of Gabe Kidd and Kenny Omega and Inferno and Mystico from the New Japan Fantastica Mania show, and Yamato versus Casey. Those would be the 3 best matches I've seen this year. And it does raise a point before we wax poetically about Yamato, to go back to the aforementioned Masaki Mochizuki versus KZ match. I think this needs to be pointed out here that KZ's Dreamgate history, and well, I guess we'll have to put this with an asterisk, KZ's singles match Dreamgate history, we won't count the BB Hulk Gauntlet match from 2014, but it is KZ versus Mochizuki from 2018, KZ versus Pac from 2019, KZ versus Doi from 2020, which nobody remembers because it was February of 2020. That match I went 4 3/4 on. So
that match was amazing.
Absolutely. Well, you know what it did? That match changed the way we thought about Naruki Doi as a single wrestler. It completely, like, it's hard to explain. Again, we've talked about this with Doi a bunch recently, but the way that people think of Doi now is not the way that Doi was thought of for the first 15 years, really almost 20 years of his career. And it was almost a night and day switch. He had the Ben K match and at Final Gate 2019 where he wins the belt. But that KZ match completely changed the way we thought about Naruki Doi as a singles wrestler. It was that good. And then he's got the Gate of Destiny 2020 match with Eita, which I just looked at my review. I gave that match 3.5 stars. And it was one of those that was way too abrupt of a finish. It was just right when it got going, Eita into the match, Shun Skywalker return. Now we're living in modern Dragon Gate history from there. But that is the one blemish. And then, from there, 2021 Shun Skywalker, in 2025 Yamato. So just going off of star ratings, that would be 4 3/4 against Mochi, 4 3/4 against Pac, 4 3/4 against Doi, 4 3/4 against Skywalker, and now 4 3/4 versus Yamato. It is hard to, I think, properly contextualize the career of KZ. I don't want this to turn into a greatest wrestler ever discussion, and is KZ one of the 100 greatest wrestlers of all time? But I do think his pedigree of big matches absolutely needs to be mentioned here.
Yeah, and if you look at starting from that February 7th, 2018 Dreamgate match case, and you look at the go forward the next 7 years of one's career, I think over that 7-year stretch, he is someone that I think when people think about Dragon Gate major singles matches, him and Mochizuki are the two names that are thrown about over that time period. And I think that that is something that, as we like try to contextualize, is a major leading factor, like not even necessarily like in a GWE kind of context, but even if you were just like trying to build a case for him for like I wouldn't even say Hall of Fame, because I don't think there is a case for him, but like you could eventually say, like, you point to him as like one of the best workers in his company for now close to a decade, and that's a major credit I feel like that KZ doesn't necessarily get all the time.
No, again, I don't know. I don't know what you do with this. I don't know where he fits in historically in this conversation, but I do think that if there was a Noah wrestler that had 6 GHC heavyweight title matches and only, challenged for the GHC belt 6 times and delivered on this level, or somebody that wrestled for the Triple Crown 6 times, didn't win but wrestled at this level, or of course the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, I just think that would be public consciousness more. I think people would be far more aware of that. And KZ does seem to live on this island. He has almost become the textbook example of, if KZ had this output in All Japan, we would think of him as one of the 10 best wrestlers in the world consistently. Same with Noah, obviously, same with New Japan. But he does, because of the way that he's pushed in Dragon Gate, which I will sound cold-hearted when I say this, but I'm all for. I'm all for beating KZ like a drum. But because of that, he is just one of the other great wrestlers on this roster. And I do think historically, we've probably underrated what he's done in the last 10 years. It's kind of an easy thing to draw, with this match. If you look at Akira Tozawa versus KZ from February of 2015, which was really, really the true KZ coming out party to now, that's 10 years of work. That is a magnificent 10 years. It's not on the level of an Ospreay or an Okada or an Omega, but when you start going down tiers, he's going to wind up being in a group of historically great wrestlers sooner rather than later if you go down that list.
Right, and I think a little bit of the fact that there is the groundswell that it is there natively, but I feel like comparatively to like other stars, the KZ time international groundswell is kind of stronger for him than other wrestlers on the roster. And I think that's been something that like has been a credit. And I think that when you look at him as we get into April and his Vegas bookings, it's going to be like kind of outsized, I feel like, in a manner, though, that you have someone though that has that kind of level of charisma and role at this point. You have someone, right, like at this point that you had this match to have the best possible match possible, really. I mean, like, you put these two together, it's like, oh, we're going for the match, not necessarily for like the big over or KZ overcoming, and especially everything else that wraps into Yamato side of the reign. It makes him a real interesting figure, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just with the outright success we've seen of somebody like Sami Zayn or even Darby Allin over the last few years, those are accomplished guys within the context of their own promotion. And KZ, was on track to having the longest Triangle Gate run of all time, but the Triangle Gate belts, is sort of it's left up to the viewer as to how important those titles are. So I'm not sure there really is a modern day, or at least a contemporary in KZ's department. He sort of seems to be the best loser in all of wrestling right now. And with that in mind, I asked you the question. I think I know where you stand on this, but Mike, there was no reason for KZ to win this match, correct?
No, I think this match existed for them to have the best possible Dream Gate match to have. Given the cards in the hand right now, the objective of this match was, hey, Yamato, KZ, go burn the house down. It was not making KZ into a champion. That would completely just dunk what you've been doing for Yamato for the last 9 months right into the toilet.
No, it's what I said 2 weeks ago. I used the phrase, and it was harsh, but I stand by it. I hope Yamato kills the guy in Osaka. It's really what I wanted to see, and this match ended up meeting on the expectation that I had for it, which was that KZ was going to put up one hell of a fight. And as I go back and look at my notes here, everything from the superplex onwards, where Yamato hits KZ with a superplex and then KZ stands right up, you're talking from that point on about the highest form of wrestling that you can get. I jumped out of my chair when KZ hit the Galleria on Yamato. I was not
What a
expecting that.
moment.
People don't typically do that. KZ obviously has never done that before. I thought that was absolutely incredible. The thing that I enjoyed so much was after that KZ Galleria spot, as much as I missed Jay and Ho Ho on commentary for this show, I'm glad we got this match without any commentary, because I talked extensively last week about my concerns with the atmosphere of the Dragon Gate crowds and the in-arena experience. And of course, Osaka #2 has been run for 25 years with the lights off, and now for some reason we've got them on, and I don't understand that for many, many reasons. But after the KZ Galleria attempt, I was so glad that we didn't have commentary, because what we got was dueling chants of Yamato and KZ, but it's not the Americanized let's go Yamato, pause, let's go KZ, pause, let's go Yamato, pause, let's go KZ, pause. It was the great, great thing of crowds chanting over the top of each other. And so you have Yamato chants and KZ chants stacked on top of that, and they're just trying to cheer louder than the other party is. And that really carries through the end of the match. An excellent Skida schoolboy attempt. Yamato kicks out of that. Obviously, Yamato drills him with a lariat, and then a second one, and then a third one. KZ pops out at one of the third lariat, a Galleria for a near fall, and then, of course, the Ragnarok puts him away. And by the end of it, look, it might be the best match I've seen this year. It is easily a top 3 match for me, again, alongside Omega versus Gabe Kidd and Inferno versus Mystico.
Yeah, and for me, you talk about the crowd. What really struck me was starting into the match, and really up until the Skida schoolboy kick out, it was 80-20 conservatively for KZ. But after that Skida schoolboy kick out, like the will of Yamato and just the crowd at that point was into the match that was happening to such an extent that soon Yamato chants started to overwhelm, and they started to drown out the KZ chants. And then towards like that final stretch, it was not 100% Yamato, but you could tell like that the tenor of the building kind of switched, being like, oh nope, it's time for our guy to put away KZ. That was fun, but now it's time for a champion stuff. And the closing stretch with the Galleria, and just immediately going Ragnarok, and just the way that it was just cemented to me, just further like illustrated that there's no one in wrestling who carries themselves and wrestles world championship matches at the level that Yamato has in 2025. It's really remarkable to see the output of this title run. And I mean, to the extent now that we get to kind of take a step back during tag league season, and before we know it, I mean, we're going to be staring down Aichi and wondering what's going to be next for this killer Yamato title run.
The thing I've told people this week is that until Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay hold a championship belt, Yamato is the best champion in wrestling. And it's not even close. And I only say that in part because Goto hasn't had the time to build on an incredible title reign. Obviously, the great match with Zack Sabre Jr. We'll see where he goes from here, but there is no one else in wrestling, and I feel incredibly strongly about this. No other world champion is acting and performing the way a world champion should, and the way that Yamato is. And I will pat myself on the back here and say that I said after Kobe, I said this is going to be the Dreamgate run that defines his entire career. I lean for better, but it might be for worse. If he really sinks with this Dreamgate run, then we really will have to figure out what to do with Yamato historically, because he will historically be a disappointment at that point. But I had a feeling this was going to be a special run. I never would have imagined Ishin, Strong Machine J, Dragon Dia all elevated the way that they were. And then now yet another one of these KZ Classic Dreamgate challenges. Mike, there's no one on Yamato's level right now, and I don't even think it's close. And it's why I felt so strongly. Like, I didn't even want to entertain the Discord or on here. I didn't even want to have the conversation of, well, what if KZ wins? Well, then it's like, it's not happening. This is not the time for that. I'll sleep okay at night knowing if KZ never wins a Dreamgate title, but I am certainly not going to put any thought into him winning it here, because with this Yamato Dreamgate run, and there's one other situation in Dreamgate that I actually feel very strongly about in a similar vein to this Yamato run. We'll get to that when we talk about Korakuen. But this Yamato Dreamgate run, you only get one of these. You've only got this bottle of energy in the importance of this title run. You only get this one time. I was talking to somebody earlier this week, somebody also, hardcore Dragon Gate fan. I kept on going, I'm just baffled that this isn't working. I'm baffled that these Korakuen shows aren't selling out just because Yamato is champion. I'm baffled that Osaka doesn't have 1,000 fans in it just because Yamato's champion, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this person's counter to that was, I don't think it's a Yamato problem. Yamato seems super over. I think it's the things we talked about earlier, the weak undercards, the lack of oomph 1 through 7 or 1 through 6 on a Dragon Gate show in 2025. I think that got really exposed in Osaka. But what Yamato is doing is next level right now. And I really hope, for the sake of year-end awards, which is maybe a dumb way to think about this, but I hope they stay consistent in Korakuen, because we didn't see any sort of notable dip with the Rey de Parejas show. It was right in line with what they've been doing. I think slightly up from February even. So if they stay consistent in Korakuen, they pop a nice house in Aichi, a few nice houses in Osaka as we head towards the end of the year, maybe we start again flirting with Yamato as a Flair Thas candidate. We can't do it right now. Just business isn't there. But Mike, he's established himself as having the single best run of his career with the Dreamgate reign.
Yeah, and I just try to think of someone who, like I write about my review, and not to wax more poetic about it, he is he has the championship will that you just don't necessarily see that often in wrestling, or really kind of in sports. Like it in a way, it feels like a similar energy to at least the era before this in F1 with Lewis Hamilton. Just, it was like, oh no, Lewis is going to win the world championship because he's Lewis Hamilton. That's what he does. He's a champion, and champions fucking win. And that's kind of like the energy that Yamato has at this point that I don't feel like ever happened before.
No. I mean, he was fish out of water. You go through the list historically, and in 2010 he was the brand new champion, so that wasn't the right time for him to act like this. 2013 and 2014, the reigns were so short, and the big one, 2016 and 2017. I mean, he didn't wrestle with this swagger. He didn't wrestle with this energy. Now you go back at the booking and you go, wow, that was a lot of Cyber Kong for one Dreamgate run. Maybe it wasn't entirely his fault, but Yamato did not hold up his end of the deal there. And it is so nice to see this time around him being the champion that I think we all hope that he would eventually be.
Absolutely. And elsewhere on this Truthgate show, and the other real big thing coming out of Osaka after 15 months, Yuki Yoshioka is back into the ring. There's a lot of shenanigans that are afoot around Yuki Yoshioka and D Courage coming out of this last week, but after 15 months, he returned on March 1st. The full 4 of D Courage going up against Z-Brats, Shun, Kai, Ishin, and Jason. And what we see in his return, and within the first few Rey de Parejas matches, him kind of struggling to get back in the winning ways. But it's just fascinating. After 15 months now, he's kind of here, and at least a little bit to me, the response, although there were times, and talking to some people that were at the shows, and also going to D Courage fan meets throughout the week, it treated as a big deal, but it's interesting. It does not feel like the big of deal that I thought Yuki Yoshioka returning would be.
Now, do you think it doesn't feel like that big of a deal from the fan perception or from the in-ring perspective?
Oh, in ring, I think he is what you'd expect Yuki Yoshioka to be after 15 months off and 4 months training. I think he's been good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been the work there. The booking makes sense. He's off. He's 15 months of ring rust. He should not be beating Shun Skywalker. That is it. It just, as the week kind of went on, it felt a little bit more muted, his return, in a way. It is the way I would put it.
Well, I don't think it helps, and this is, by no means a knock on him. I think Yoshioka, in the 4 matches that we've seen from him since his return, I think he's been capital V, capital G, very good. I don't think he's been great. And I think this entire thing changes if he goes out there on March 1st and is the catalyst for a barn burner 8-man tag. I think we perceive him in an entirely different light, regardless of the Rey de Parejas matches following that. That didn't happen. He had a very good performance on 3-1, a very good performance on 3-2, a very good performance on 3-4 that was involved in a really fun match on the 3-5 show that just hit the Dragongate Network. You're right, though. It does seem to be missing something. I asked you, do you think this is representative of what we talked about last week? Is this an issue with Dragon Gate's presentation style more than it is Yoshioka, or do you look at this as a Yoshioka problem?
Well, I don't know if it's purely a Yoshioka problem. So, I talked to someone who went to a D-Courage fan meetup, and it was like, oh, the evening was full, but it wasn't super full. It wasn't completely like sold out, and his line for like the Yoshioka signings weren't as long as like a Shun Skywalker's line, and it seems like at least like the fans are there, but in the way that he was the main character of 2022 and 2023, and especially with this, maybe losing that 15 months maybe loses some momentum in a way with the fans.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, he's coming into a promotion that it was one of my big talking points last year. It was a credit to Dragon Gate that they were able to move forward the way that they did without Yoshioka. We would say, and I think the general consensus was, oh, I miss watching Yuki Yoshioka because we know what he can add. But it was rarely ever the conversation last year of we miss Yuki Yoshioka because he's what's missing from the promotion.
Right.
I think the momentum that Dragon Gate garnered, especially in the back half of the year, is actually doing a disservice to his return. I do think the other end of this is that his injury was so weird and so specific, and it sounds like he's about as safe as he could be, but that injury could flare up again, that they're not exactly going pedal to the metal with this. It felt like a very tepid, safe sort of dip the toe in the water style of return from Yoshioka.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a fair assessment. I mean, especially with the idea that he could not put any strain on his body for so long after the surgeries, that there would be this feeling out process. And the fact that he comes back and is very good. And I mean, it's not like he was someone that wrestled at a completely safe style, I would say, but I felt like I was getting a representative of Yuki Yoshioka, and it's like, okay, no, this makes sense. And especially as the week went on, especially when you get over to Yokohama, you were really able to see him kind of get into play. But you also have the aspect, and with Yuki Yoshioka returning, that D-Courage matches now have been all about the reappearance of Dia Inferno. So on March 1st, before the return match, Shun Skywalker brings out a mannequin that has the Dia Inferno mask, saying, I don't have any use for Yoshioka, but I miss that guy, Dia Inferno. And it continues throughout the week into interrupting matches with D-Courage involved with it, and now causing a discord within Z-Brats, the fact that Kota Minoura does not see the need for Yuki Yoshioka or Dia Inferno to be a part of Z-Brats, which Shun Skywalker, as Jay pointed out on commentary in Tokyo, doesn't really care what Kota Minoura thinks about this whole situation.
I am so nervous about what's to come with this storyline. I will say up front, I have no idea where they're going with Dia Inferno. I have a hard time grasping that. I would encourage people, and this, you sort of had this point in the Discord as well. Whoever was under the mask at Korakuen is likely not the guy that's under the mask. I thought it was obvious that Homare was under the mask at Korakuen Hall, but that doesn't mean anything in the long run that Homare is Dia Inferno. That wouldn't make any sense.
Should I give my rules here about this?
Go ahead.
So here is the situation, at least in the modern era, what to do with mysterious masked characters. Until they pull off the mask, do not concern yourself about, oh, this guy's looking kind of big, this guy is looking kind of tall, because it's not linked to anything really until the fact that they're dedicated to a person as that character. They will literally have rookies come out in Jackie Kamei's gear to do it, but it's not anything to really hang your hat on saying, oh, it's clearly Hamare is going to be now Die Inferno. No, is he just was available and they gave him the costume and said go. What I would say, and the caveat is, as soon as Dio Inferno starts doing spots or is in a match, then speculate. That's when you know that they've probably figured out who it's going to be. This isn't a situation where like there will be like Metal Warriors or Dr. Muscles, but until like you start seeing like dedicated stuff, is Dio Inferno has just been popping up at ringside. That doesn't mean a thing about who it is. Wait until actual wrestling.
So I want to break this down in two parts. I want to talk about Die Inferno, and then I want to talk about Shun Skywalker and Coach Minoru, because I think those are two separate conversations, actually.
Okay. Go ahead.
In terms of Inferno, I want your thoughts first on just bringing that character back into the fold. I mean, that feels, again, just with the way time moves now, with the way this promotion evolves, that feels like ancient history. I guess it's probably worth saying this for those that don't know. In 2020, Shun Skywalker and Yuki Yoshioka went on excursion to Mexico. Shun Skywalker came back in late 2020, immediately won the Dreamgate belt, was positioned as a main eventer, this whole thing. Dia Inferno, I believe, came back 2 months later and was set up to essentially be what Darkness Dragon was to Dragon Kid, in the sense that Dia Inferno would follow around Dragon Dia and make his life hell. It was an awkward gimmick that I seem to enjoy more than a lot of other people. It was certainly hampered by the fact that I think at various points throughout 2021,
Dia got hurt a lot.
Dia got hurt, and I think Dia Inferno got hurt at one point too. So it was just like, we knew the story was coming to an end. It felt like a logical ending until it wasn't. And yet it felt like it took forever to get there. And it was this very, very weird thing. And then, of course, December of 2021, you have the tag match, the mask tag match with Diamante and Shun Skywalker. What was Shun Skywalker wasn't a heel yet. It was Diamante and Dia Inferno against Dragon Dia and Shun Skywalker. Every single person in the world thought that Dia Inferno was just going to lose and unveil himself to be Yuki Yoshioka, because I should note, everybody knew it was Yoshioka. That was a given. It was obviously not said. It was in storyline. Oh, we don't know who this is. Everybody watching knew it was Yoshioka. We all expected him to lose that mask match. Instead, Dragon Dia did. But then Dia Inferno, realizing that Dragon Dia was unmasked, said that character no longer had a reason to exist. He took off his mask, and it was Yuki Yoshioka. And then the next month, D-Courage was born. So that's the history for those that don't know it. What do you think about Dia Inferno coming back into the fold here?
I think that, like, just to have, like, my Dia Inferno thoughts, I think a lot of the awkwardness was because of just injuries and COVID that kind of hampered that, and also the fact that you had a giant rubber mask and you had a guy wrestling, like, in a full body costume with, like, rubber sleeves. It just looked very uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
I feel like that did color things a little bit. I think it, and I said it at the time, and I'd say it again, if it just was like the black colorways of the Dragon Dia mask and not a rubber one, I think it would have been a lot better received initially. Just saying that first. It coming back, I mean, it's completely in line with Shun Skywalker's character to do this. He has, when he started to go after Natural Vibes and Jackie Kamei, he started having people. It was the stolen gear thing, and then the Mass Z with Jackie Kamei's gear coming out. As soon as he wanted to kind of go after Gold Class, you had Mini Skywalker and Minorita as a thing. This is just a targeted attack at D-Courage and tells you where his interests now are for the next few months, basically. And I like it as a aspect of, it makes sense within the character, and we really, like, uniquely have not had a lot of D-Courage versus Z-Brats stuff, although there really should have been all throughout. So, I mean, saving this one for right now does feel very appropriate. But Dia Inferno coming back, I think that I have an idea on who I would make Dia Inferno. It's probably going to be a spicy one.
Well, please, because that's what I was going to ask you next.
I think it needs to be Kota Minoura.
Okay, explain that, because that's not something I had thought about.
What are the big problems with Kota Minoura? Okay.
Mainly that he's a fucking charisma void, which was so apparent, by the way, in the oh god, was it what was the
Tokyo back and forth.
well, I was thinking, hold on, I'm now drawing a blank. What was the second of the show that I reviewed? What was the main event? That was
That was the Chibis versus D Courage.
okay. No, that's not the Korakuen main event. It was just
Mentally, yeah.
oh my god, and it was just this horrible situation where you would have Daya and Jason or Yuki and Jason, and it was like, oh man, we're really cooking here, and the crowd seems into this. And then Minoura would come in the ring, and it would just die a death. And that is, in essence, the problem with Kota Minoura.
So I think that one of the best ways to kind of encourage him to get out of that element, because the heel turn definitely hasn't done that, is put him under a hood and say like, oh, he's losing his mind, not because of the fact that that Shun Skywalker is involved with Yuki Yoshioka. He's losing his mind because he wants attention on him. So he's like, how do I solve this? I become Dia Inferno too, and then guess what, Case? You don't have to worry as much about him being a charismaless void when he's behind a giant rubber costume.
That is true. I have to hand it to you there. You don't have to hand it to ISIS, but I got to hand it to you there. That it would inherently solve one of those issues. But I guess, is your idea that Minoura would just be Dia Inferno going forward?
I think that you would have him as Dia Inferno into the cage match.
Okay, all right.
Or like, I mean, eventually he would lose that. Then I mean, like this now, you're able to kind of, because it's been raised the point that he views Yuki Yoshioka as his giant rival. So the fact that he inhabits like his alter ego, I think that makes it a very pointed one-on-one feud.
And then they could do Yuki versus Minoura in a hair versus hair match, and Minoura could lose that one as well. And then we would just restart, because what's the fucking point with Kota Minoura?
Yeah, which I noticed that some folks were going like, oh, Yuki's hair is long. His hair's always been long.
His hair has always been long. Yeah, that was. I mean, if you go back and look at his 2023 matches, it was still very long then.
Yeah. It might be longer now, but I don't know if his hair is tipping his hand as much as say like Ishin's is.
Yeah. So second part of this, because I don't have a good feel on this Dia Inferno stuff yet. I have no idea where they're going with this. But the second part of this is the Shun Skywalker Coach Minoura piece, which is that we've seen, and it makes sense given that Dead or Alive is right around the corner. We've seen a number of misfires among Zebrats members, friendly fire gone wrong, that sort of thing. And it has really seemed apparent since the closing of Korakuen Hall, and then obviously the footage we have from now the show on the 5th, that they're gearing up for some sort of Shun Skywalker versus Coach Minoura issue. Mike, you watched the trios match on the 5th. That was Shun, Hamare, and of course I got to pull up this show now because I already forget the trios.
Kai.
Thank you. Shun, Hamare, and Kai against Daya, Tanaka, and Yoshioka. And what happens is, and it's a very entertaining brawl. Who knew these? We'll talk about it more in a second, but who knew these network uploads, these house shows would be so much fun to watch? But they're having this very, very fun, very heated brawl. And Shun Skywalker takes Dragon Daya towards the ropes for Coach Minoura to do the box attack on him. And as you would expect, Daya ducks, Minoura hits Shun, Shun falls down, Daya pins Shun Skywalker, which is a huge deal. Nobody pinned Shun Skywalker. And we have continued issues with Zebrats. My question to you is that you watched this. When Minoura hits Skywalker, his reaction was so strange to me. I can't figure out what they were trying to get across. He hit Skywalker on the head by accident, and then just sort of, he looks directly into the camera and just screams. And I couldn't tell what that was supposed to be. I'm so lost on that.
Yeah, I can't tell if that was just Kota Minoura things, or because like in the scenario that we've seen, especially as it like pertains to Ishin, when like the misfires have been around, like Ishin and Kato, like they immediately play it for comedy, and they're very quickly back on the same page, right?
Or at the very least, we've seen in history, they're going to immediately play it for dread. Like, oh no, I just hit the guy that I wasn't supposed to. There's a few different ways to react to this. I have never seen somebody do what he
Feral
did. And
scream.
I don't know what to do with that. It really, it has bothered me to no end since I watched it like 6 hours ago. I don't know what that was supposed to be. I don't know how that furthered the story at all.
Yeah, my note here is Mino. It was a cookie sheet that time.
Okay,
that it was.
that's right. Rest in peace, the box. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. Went out in glory. Mino cookie sheets Shun, does a feral scream. Like it just it's discordant is what it is. But you had like this really fun match that ends up in that manner, and especially it's worth noting in this match after basically 3 days of getting fucked with about the Dia Inferno situation. Z-Brats was stalling, and D-Courage actually jumped them. So you're starting to see even D-Courage kind of now elevate throughout the week this whole entire saga in it. But yeah, Kota Minoura remains just as much of a quandary as he always does, but in new and unique ways.
So the reason that I'm hyper fixated on this is coming out of Korakuen, and I apologize, I don't think my Korakuen written review is going to be up until Monday. Just haven't had a chance to really sit down and dig through it. So I try not to post those on the weekends. So Monday is going to be when it's going to be up. But I left Korakuen unable to stop thinking about what I have now deemed my ultimate nightmare scenario. And you tell me if you think I'm overreacting here, but I just get the horrible feeling that after 3 years as sort of the de facto leader of Z-Brats, because again, it is technically Kai's unit, but as the de facto leader of Z-Brats, that they're gonna turn Shun Skywalker face, and they're going to do it at the hands of a Kota Minoura betrayal. And Mike, I can assure you that this would be a horrific idea, because Kota Minoura does not have the charisma to lead his own heel unit. And more importantly, and this is the thing I was referencing when I talked about how Yamato's title reign is so special and how you can't make a mistake. You can't mess this up, because once it's gone, it's not coming back. This Shun Skywalker heel run is one of the great things we've seen in this company. Z-Brats, simply because of Skywalker's presence, has become one of the most iconic heel units in the company's history. I think of them incredibly highly. Yes,
it's already one of the longest tenured.
Absolutely, and it doesn't feel stale given their current their current lineup. You go through history. Diamante had his moments, Kento had his moments, Hyo had his moments. Now it's Jason Lee and Gianni doing their thing, and Ishin and Kato on the rise. And I'll get to them in a second because they're important to the story. But this Shun Skywalker heel character, whether it's Z-Brats or Z-Brats in a second unit that's down the road, or Z-Brats in a second unit and a third unit down the road, you're only going to get one chance to turn him face from this era of his career. And it cannot be squandered on trying to make Kota Minoura a thing. I said for years when he floundered in Gold Class that what he needed to do was fully turn heel, refresh, and go from there. And then Minoura refreshed, and you know what? He's no Jason Lee. He's no Ishin. He's no Yoshiki Kato. He is not the guy. And I just have this horrible, horrible feeling in my stomach that they are going to try to cash a check that they can't cash, and that they are going to sacrifice this once-in-a-generation heel run that Shun Skywalker is having. They're going to turn him face, which should be great. Look, I can't wait to see him turn eventually, but I'm not there yet. I don't feel like that character is anywhere close to being in that position. And worst of all, they're going to do it to, and I say this in quotations, benefit Kota Minoura's career. Am I overreacting to all of this?
I would say, are you overreacting? I was not of a mindset that a Shun Skywalker face turn was coming anytime soon.
Okay.
But that might be just because I just look at it and I go oh, there's still so much life on him being a heel leader, and maybe you evolve from Z-Brats into something. But you didn't
let me stop you there, and let me throw one thing at you, and then I'll let you go back. Sorry to cut you off, but the reason that the Shun Skywalker face turn crept into my mind is that we need a Kobe World main event. And we talked about, obviously in January, they headlined that first Korakuen with Yamato versus Shun. Shun wins. A lot of people thought, oh, maybe they're setting up something at Kobe. Have we considered that the Kobe World main event might be Yamato versus a babyface Shun Skywalker? And that is the reason that I can't get this out of my head.
I can't discount the idea of babyface Shun Skywalker. You have to be so careful with his face turn.
You cannot screw it up. And it's
and
one of those
you can't
deals.
Unmask him for it either.
No,
that's
no.
thing. Like, well, while we're getting into cage season and like the kind of face turn that could come out of it, it can't be one that comes off of him losing his mask. It has to be just him turning face. Like,
no. I mean, I think he's like Liger. I mean, that thing's not going anywhere. It would be so preposterous for him to ever lose his mask. I would hope that everybody is on the same page with that, but it's one of those things that's hard to fully articulate. But
no, there's like he is the biggest star in the company, and he's the biggest star in an act that is such a unique kind of thing upon itself. I mean, the one company that consistently the most popular person in the company ends up being the heel is Dragongate, and you have someone who has done it as well as heel Yamato. And I think that when you like look at like character work wise, I mean, it's immediately Pantheon level, so you have to be careful about it.
But the reason it's so important is that this is a company that, fairly or unfairly, is still fighting the battle of public perception,
and it always will be
more than anything. That is their uphill battle right now. And if they turn Shun face and they don't get the proper payoff on it, it doesn't immediately affect the legacy of Zebrats. But as we move further and further away, people are going to lose more and more goodwill for this unit that was incredibly entertaining because they're not going to get the payoff that they wanted. And Coach Minoura is not the guy for that spot. Yoshiki Kato is not ready for that spot. And Ishin, for as much as I love him, is not ready for that spot. You have to keep Shun in the confines that he's in. He's doing the thing that he should be doing right now. And I really think they are going to start walking a very dangerous tightrope the longer we see Shun and Minoura interact with one another. I just have this horrible feeling that, yes, Shun might be the one that main events Kobe World as a babyface, but they would still be sacrificing his heel character to greatly emphasize Coach Minoura as a heel, to emphasize him greater as a heel. And then, of course, that is my nightmare scenario. There is, of course, the super nightmare scenario where they turn Shun Skywalker face because Coach Minoura is now going to lead the heel unit, and then Kobe World is Yamato versus Coach Minoura, and then at that point, I will need a wellness check.
Yeah, I just think that like the Kota Minoura fears, I just like look at it and I look at him, and like if you look and you see like fan interest, especially like on social media, especially native one, like what is a thing that always comes up for out of favor fans case?
What's that?
It is the Kota Minoura debacle in 2022. And it's not just something that I know sometimes we get kind of a rep for going one way or another. It's not just our opinion about the situation with him. It has scared off fans.
Unmitigated business failure in the short term and the long term. Nothing good came of it.
And I'm really like, I look at how he has been since the heel turn, and it's just like, if you keep on doing that, you're going to keep on repelling those fans. And it's in such I don't want to say the company's in a precarious position, but I always go back to the idea of this time period is the existential threat, because you're trying to be able to transition from the original era to now the current modern era, and without the idea of like, oh, so-and-so is not coming back through this door. And putting all the chips in like the Kota Minoura basket just seems like the exact wrong thing to do for me personally. And I just can't see that with how he's been performing, that outside of a major change, which I think is him losing his mind and becoming Inferno too, the charisma is not going to grow on trees for him. And it's not
No,
going to happen after turning on Shun Skywalker.
He gets outclassed by Jason Lee in every tag match they have together. And the argument, because I almost feel like I need to re-articulate it, is it's not that he's a bad wrestler. You know, he's incredibly gifted. Now he has a ceiling, and that ceiling does seem to get lower and lower as time goes on. But I can say this because I lived through it. He's 2018 Eita. They wanted Eita to be capital A, capital G, a guy so badly, and he so clearly wasn't ready. And the only reason that we now look back on that time period into 2019 with any sort of fondness is because Pac showed up, and Pac was a human life preserver that saved a heel unit that was drowning with Eita at the helm. And by the time that Pac left, Eita was in better standing. He fixed some of the kinks in his character. He was able to, maybe not in the most spectacular fashion, but at least he was able to lead a heel unit. And what I really thought was going to happen last year was that they were going to turn Minoru heel, and that Shun was going to act as the Pac in this situation, and that we would eventually get to a point where, okay, Minoru isn't his number 2, he's his 1B, and we've hit the refresh button, and you know what? Coach Minoru is going to be not a great heel unit leader, but he can be a good heel unit leader. And instead, like I just said, you know, Homari's more interesting. Ishin is so much better at everything. Kato's more intriguing. You know, Jason Lee is tag team partner. He doesn't have that leading man charisma, but is there a better supporting actor in wrestling than Jason Lee? Like, the guy just does his role, and he does it better than anybody else. And so I'm burning out on Minoru. I pushed all my chips, and I don't want anything to do with this guy anymore as any sort of legitimate main event star. And yet here they are at a very precarious time in the part of the calendar that really truly matters, saddling him alongside next to Shun Skywalker. And it terrifies me, because if they don't get this right, we will see damage in the short term and the long term.
No, I totally understand your mindset with that. And
also the scream into the camera was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I'm going to mention that one more time. I don't know what that was.
It's the most Lynchian thing that pro wrestling has done in a long time.
If somebody can explain that to me, if they can give me the character analysis, I am not being facetious. I would love to hear it. I would love to know what he was going for there.
Maybe he's Black Lodge Kota Minoru now. That would actually be like the thing to actually be interested into him as a character case.
I don't know. I think I might like UK Coach Minoru more than any other character. Maybe he just heads over there for, I don't know, 9 months.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, he never did have a real excursion.
No, and you know, I don't know. I don't know with him. I thought it would all figure itself out when he turned heel, and it just hasn't. You know, it's his own unit is his greatest competition, and they have all just blown by him. Especially, you know, after the unit disbands match, Gate of Destiny, he and Rita didn't interact for a full 2 months. They didn't touch until that 2nd January Korakuen, and that is when you saw the distance between Jason's output and Kota's output dramatically change. When Minoru wasn't wrestling not only A, his natural rival, his former mini, but also B, the human carry machine that is Rita, that's when it all hit me in the face all at once. That this is he's never going to figure this out.
Yeah, no, that's why I think the answer is a giant rubber thing, so you have to see his face.
No, I just maybe he's the 3rd guy in a Triangle Gate team. Maybe that's what he was meant to be.
Oof. On a positive note, should we start talking about the Rey de Parejas action?
Yeah, let's go through the matches that we've seen so far.
Yeah, so Rey de Parejas started on the second night of the doubleheader on March 2nd. Case had the written review of that one. We had 4 matches on the first night, and then at Korakuen we had 3. Oh no, we had another 4 in Korakuen, and then we had 2 hop up in Yokohama. I guess let's just take it from the start. The opener of Rey de Parejas, KZ, and Strong Machine J versus Masaki Mochizuki and Akihiro Sahara.
So Akihiro Sahara is my favorite wrestler of all time. I like him more than Kenta Kobashi. I like him more than Stan Hansen. I like him more than Akira Tozawa. Akihiro
He's the
Sahara,
absolute boy.
he let's see, he brings me more joy than anything in the history of the world, and I am completely obsessed with his wrestling right now.
I am so enamored with him that even when I see like his photo whenever they're running down the cars and it's just him smiling, I'm going like, oh, there's the absolute boy. He's going to be on the show tonight, and he has really like now like put himself head and shoulders ahead of Hamare, and I think it's different between him and Daiki Yanagiuchi, but he's already, I feel like, just work wise and inhabiting a character that he's just an absolute tank with a lot of pluck, and he's just not going to be able to be knocked down. And it does kind of feel like, especially starting in Osaka, and we've seen this like time and time again, crowds kind of fall in love with Aki, I feel like.
I don't know how you couldn't. I mean, I said what I said in jest, but in all seriousness, he's one of, I don't know, the 3 most exciting wrestlers on this roster. Like if I'm going to a Dragon Gate show right now, it's whatever Shun is doing, and then it's kind of opponent pending on Yamato, and maybe Kame, maybe Rita. But my eyes right now are darting to what is Sahara doing on these shows, and is it making tape? Because this is one of the most interesting runs in the company right now. He just has such an understanding of what he should be doing. And that is something that some wrestlers never figure out, and he seems to have it. And I'll say it with the caveat that, as I've said time and time again, you have to look at these Dragon Gate careers in chapters. And for whatever reason, Dragon Gate knows how to write a killer chapter 1. These rookies come out, and by and large, they all look amazing. Chapter 2 is really nut crunching time. That's when you kind of see what somebody can be. Sahara is not anywhere near the chapter 2 of his career, but my God, is he writing one incredible chapter 1 right now.
Yeah, and we've seen with him like in this match, and then at Korakuen against Benkei and Junior, just really him being able to, in his way, I mean, he's a rookie, so he is going to lose all these matches, but he squares up, and we started to see that against Shuji Kondo earlier this year, but more and more it's just like, oh, he's going to get knocked down, but he's going to like run off the ropes and then try to give you a spine buster because he's Akihiro Sahara and he's a tank. And it's just been so much fun, and especially the way that they kind of worked this into the finish in the opener on March 2nd, where he's trying to do a spine buster, but before he could do that, KZ it lands on the ground and essentially kind of almost makes into like almost a crab-like maneuver on him for the win. And it was not a barn burner of a match, but for Akihiro Sahara, I felt like it is showing now that he's still in those last few pages in his first chapter case, but we're like seeing him in a tag league with Masaki Mochizuki is such an exciting thing, especially now with the prospects of being able to see him throughout this tournament, because we've seen how people, when they start teaming with Masaki Mochizuki and Mochizuki Jr., how exponential their growth can be. So it's just what we're seeing now versus what we may see by the end of this month might be one of the stories of Dragon Gate Spring.
Yeah, for as much as you and I loved the original Mochizuki Dojo, I never really got a proper answer on how influential Mochizuki was actually on their careers and how much training he was doing with those guys. Now, of course, it is obvious to some degree that, hey, you spend a lot of time around Masaki Mochizuki, you're going to become a better pro wrestler. But even in the second incarnation, I think Daiki has taken such a huge level up. But the leap that Sahara has made from, a guy that debuted at the end of September, and it feels weird, in the 6 months that he's been around to analyze his career this deeply. But the first 3 months of his career was like, okay, this guy's a lot of fun. Dragon Gate doesn't have a lot of wrestlers like this, so it's fun to see him. But he's very tepid in the ring. He doesn't have his footwork down. He doesn't have the polish that a Dragon Gate wrestler would have. And then 2025 hit, and it was like, oh, he's mini Vader. Like, he just he understands everything so well for the role that he's being asked to do. And I'll have more to say on him when we talk about Korakuen. I'll hold off on the other Sahara thoughts I have until then.
Yeah, but already one of the stories of the tournament is going to be the Absolute Boy and seeing what all he does from there. But also, return of Strong Machine J coming back on these shows after taking off February for repairs. Him and KZ, we'll have more throughout the tournament for them, but already, whereas Yuki Yoshioka, you have the natural storyline of 15 months off. How quickly is he going to get his groove back? It does kind of feel, especially after the Osaka match, that's just kind of like we're picking off right as the Gate of Bayside with Strong Machine J.
Yeah, no, it's nice to see him back. He looked good.
And then our second Rey de Parejas match from the Osaka March 2nd show, the Battle of Z-Brats, Jason Lee versus Kota Minoura. Oh, Jason Lee and Kota Minoura, the Open Twin Gate champions, versus Ishin and Yoshiki Kato. 20-minute time limit draw as the two heel teams completely had a 20-minute match that went in all kinds of directions. And really, like, my big takeaway from this one case, Ishin now, he is just so has such a awareness and command of who he is, and sometimes I think it gets almost a little bit too much, but I like the way that he plays off of Kato as a team, and I feel like it helps out Kato as well, having Ishin there to kind of lead him along. We got the Ingranaje back for the first time, it feels like, in a long time.
Yeah, no, this was a 20-minute match that felt like 80 minutes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It was a roller coaster, man. This match was great, and then Minoura would do his thing, and it would take a step down, and then they'd build it back up, and then it would kind of come down again. And I knew I knew the finish wasn't going to be clean. I'm so glad they didn't do like a 4-minute DQ or low blow and roll up finish. I'm glad they gave these teams the full 20 minutes to work with. It was just so much stuff in this match. It felt like it had all of these different demarcations. It just, oh my God, it was crowd brawling and then crowd brawling again. It was so much stuff, but by the end of it, they won me over. I really thought this was a really good match. I went 3 3/4 on this. It was just so much stuff.
Yeah, I was 3.5. The thing that should be kind of brought up about Jason Lee and Kota Minoura, they have been using belt shots to win all their matches, or leading to the finishes of their matches in Rey de Parejas. So at least when the belt shot happened, it was right after the 3 minutes left call happened. At that point, I was like, all right, I just want Kato to survive this. And that really kind of became the story of the last 3 minutes, with a long Ingranaje and then Kato fighting out of a Golden Rose attempt that probably, if this match was 20 minutes and 15 seconds, it would have probably been Mino Lee winning with the Golden Rose, but Kato was able to kind of claw his way to the finish line and eke out a point out of this heel versus heel match.
Once it became apparent that they were nearing the time limit draw, I thought they did a really good job of teasing possible finishes before the time limit.
Yeah, and I felt like it, in a way, it kind of made Yoshiki Kato the face in the match towards the end.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I felt like that's where this match kind of shone, was in that kind of aspect. You did have a big 20 count tease that Ishin. I appreciate you having my fellow alum Cowboy Joe West reference in your review with how Ishin called himself safe.
Yeah, no, that was. There were 2 great 20 count-out spots on the floor with the Z-Brats matches with Ishin and Kato and at this show and then the Korakuen show, and the full-on 4-guy sprint with them all breaking the count at 19, and then Ishin doing the baseball umpire, the safe motion. You know I get a little touchy with this comedy because I don't want him to be perceived as goofy, but that one hit for me. That was excellent.
Yeah, really fun match, and I think for a time limit draw that had everything, it still ended with a good taste in our mouth, especially with how Kato worked that last 3 minutes. The third tournament match case, it's time to talk about Animal Japan. Hyo and Kuroshio Tokyo Japan versus Shun and Hamare. Samson Driver on Hamare after a jacket distraction gets the win for Animal Japan, and I think I figured out how to be okay with Eichmann in Dragon Gate.
Do you not watch him? Do you just skip the match?
I go with the idea that Eichmann very clearly wants to be here. Like you can tell with the way that he has worked here versus other promotions that he shows up, and that this is not just kind of a paycheck here.
Oh
And
no,
then,
he's into this. I mean, he's the guy that found Magnum Tokyo. You know,
right, yeah.
he's very into all this.
And he's so excited, and he goes into a buzzsaw like Shun Skywalker, who basically goes like, "I fucking hate this guy, and now I'm going to make him pay for it." I can tolerate matches with Eichmann if you have Shun Skywalker basically paying back his fandom.
Yeah, I know we're early in the tournament, and no matter what we get from the network going forward, at least the preliminary schedule shows us that we're going to get a few more Hyo and Eichmann matches. This is the best it's going to get. And I said this last week previewing the show. Him and Shun is the best possible scenario. And you saw it Korakuen with him and Yamato and BB Hulk, not to jump ahead here, but it just didn't have the fire or the intensity that was needed to make this watchable. Whereas he and Shun together, i.e. Shun beating him up, was quite entertaining. The other thing that I took away from this match, Hamare might be Hyo's best opponent.
Yeah, that super kick out of the handspring.
Outstanding. And it made me want to put the Bravegate belt back on Hyo just to get a Hamare challenge, because I'm very intrigued by those two guys together. They seem to work really well.
I really enjoyed Hamare this week. Like,
oh my god, yeah. No, he's a very good worker. They are keeping him in a very small, specific box.
Yeah.
And I think he's doing a good job at succeeding in that role. The difference is they're going, hey, Sahara, you're teaming with Masaki Mochizuki. Go out there and steal the show in the opening match. Hamare, literally since his first match, has not been put in that position. So it's hard to directly compare those two. I really don't think it's a head-to-head comparison in terms of their output, but I do think Hamare is playing his role exceptionally well, especially over the last few shows.
Yeah, and I think you could tell how comfortable he is in this role. Like, how do you really see growth with him? It is, one, he bumps like an insane madman. And I think that him at his age doing this kind of character, that is going to be his biggest strength for right now. And like his vulturing and picking and choosing his spots, I think, has become really one of the highlights of the matches with him in it. It's just it was just something that I wrote down that one spot. Hyo does his handspring evasions, and Hamare, after two handsprings, just clocks him with a super kick, and that's exactly what you want to be seeing someone playing Hamare's role to kind of do. He's
got the best super kick in wrestling since peak Young Bucks. It's a phenomenal super kick.
Yeah, no, and he loves spamming it. The last Rey de Parejas match and the main event of the second night in Edion Arena 2 was the Chibi team of Jackie Kamei and Rita versus Dragon Daya and Yuki Yoshioka. It was Kamei and Rita getting the win with the JFK in a very good match that, you know, it in some way I feel like there was a little bit of like just figuring out like the hot team versus the character team in a way.
Yeah, you know, this was for me the best Yoshioka match that we saw from the last few shows, but it was not any sort of great spectacle. It was really just four raw performers that are so great individually that they sort of willed themselves to have a great match.
Yeah, I mean, with the chemistry that Kamei and Rita have at this point, it's like you're already starting at a very high floor. And I mean, Yoshioka, he works just as well as Yuki Yoshioka did in 2023. It's just, well, they are not going to have him go do full out matches, at least as it relates to that opening weekend. As we move on to Korakuen, I think really tournament-wise, we started off with another Mochizuki Dojo opener. They did open the Korakuen with the Dio Inferno mask angle, but it was Benkei and Mochizuki Jr., who this was their first match of the tournament, going up against Masaki Mochizuki and Akihiro Sahara, who were at 0 points. the German suplex from Junior got the win and got gold class on the board in this block.
This was the best match on the show. This was absolutely outstanding. And I will forever remember Masaki Mochizuki, as he's done almost a million times, tossing, Benkei up over his shoulder onto the apron and then hitting the ropes on the other side for, what would have been either a big boot or a kick to the back. There's a few things Mochizuki does in that spot. For Sahara only to cut him off and football tackle Benkei on the apron, which so clearly caught Jay by surprise and caught Ho-Ho by surprise and caught everybody by surprise. One of my favorite spots in a very, very long time. In this match, all four guys, I tip my cap to them. This match was just so good.
Hot-blooded touchdown, Akihiro Sahara.
Hot-blooded touchdown. You got him interacting with Junior. You
Great
got
chemistry.
him. Oh, my God. Such good chemistry with Junior. Such good chemistry with Ben, as you would expect. I mean, that's the crazy thing about this match is that, Masaki Mochizuki is pulling his weight. He's having serious matches and
Right.
is delivering. And we don't always see that, especially post M3K. It's not like he's the busiest guy in the world, but he's having serious matches. But in this match, Mochizuki was the fourth guy in this match. Ben and Junior are an excellent team. I wish they would win the Twin Gate belts because I just like them as a team so much. At the very least, I wish they would challenge for them. And then Sahara, I mean, this was not only the best match of his career and his best individual performance, it was his best individual performance by a mile. This was like a full-on, this was a real thing that we just witnessed, and it has catapulted him firmly right now into number one in my Observer Rookie of the Year rankings for 2025. And it will have to take something, either Sahara, a collapse on his end, or somebody to really, really impress me to beat him out.
He powerbombed Benkei.
Powerbomb MK, and I think maybe Paul in the Discord said it, but that should be his finish. That powerbomb looks absolutely incredible, as does his Vader bomb.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really, and I think like the real credit about Sahara when you would compare him to even like not even doing like the direct 1-to-1, but talking about where they are 6 months in, like think about with Daiki, other than the Gucci Rocket, we did not have another move for him. Like that was basically it before he started learning all of the flash pens. Like that's where he was. Fuda had like one kick and that was kind of the deal for him. We already have like you can make it wouldn't be like an authoritative one. You could do the full moveset of Akihiro Sahara in any wrestling game you wanted to play.
Oh no, he's got his things now. It's great.
Yeah. And I was not as high as you on this. I was 3.5. I might just be going off of Yuki Yoshioka returning and giving him like too much of a credit for that,
Mm-hmm.
But just excellent stuff here. And Bennett and Junior, like between this and then their match that they had at the main event in Yokohama, I think the best tag team in the tournament so far.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna do a Junior spiel here, but I can't believe collectively in the bubble that we're in that we aren't just all like, oh yeah, Junior's one of the 5 best prospects under 30. Of course he is. Just, why would anybody think differently ever? It's just, I mean, it's so obvious to me, but whatever.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go down a little bit the Korakuen results because these two things are relatively quick before the next RDP match. Madoka Kakuta lost Punch Tominaga because of a Dia Inferno distraction. Royal Sambo ended with Ryoya Tanaka and Luis Monte. Luis won with a Vuelta finale.
Can I just say real quick on that Battle Royal?
Mm-hmm.
I was really annoyed when that match got announced because I thought, man, I don't want to see that in Cork. And then I kept on looking at who was in the match, and I went, well, there's really no good there. I can't figure out a way to get all these guys on the card in one match that isn't a Battle Royal. So I came in annoyed that the match was happening. I have to say, for a Battle Royal, it was great. It way over delivered. And Monte, the last 4 were Monte, Rita, Kame, and Tanaka. And what Monte did to each of those guys was phenomenal. Do not skip that Battle Royal. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird start where they had everyone come out with their unit.
It was bizarre. The
but
format of the match was completely silly. I loved Ho-Ho getting thrown out almost immediately. And then
Yep.
the final four, again, we lose sight of this with Monte because he had such a weird booking year in 2024. He's still, I don't know, one of the 5 best Mexican wrestlers in the world. That's kind of the level that he's still out. And I think we've all sort of forgotten that, but it's true.
Yeah. The second Rey de Parejas match, Yoshiki Kato and Ishin came into this match with 1 point from Osaka, going up against the first match in their tournament, Ryo Fuda and Daiki Yanagiuchi. In case Daiki did it. Daiki has a win in wrestling, a actual fall of consequence too, because he was the legal man in this. As this battle of classmates, fighting on the outside, broken boxes, but until a double count out tease that Daiki got in at 19, winning. He did a box attack to Kato to cut him off, and Daiki Yanagiuchi and Ryo Fuda win their first Rey de Parejas match so far, and Daiki has finally somewhat done it, Case.
So a really fascinating match. I wanna break this down here. For the last 6 months or so, these Daiki Korakuen matches have been built around him almost winning with a flash pin. He rolls somebody up here, rolls somebody up there, it's counter, it's whatever it is, and he almost wins the match. And so going into this, I think 100% of people expected him to catch Kato with some sort of flash pin, roll him up, get the big ovation, and off we go. They'll lose every other match, but at least they won this match. I found the structure of this match to be so intriguing because, like I said, the last 6 months of Daiki matches have largely been built off of hope spots and near pinfalls. And this match didn't really have any of that. Like, Daiki got his ass kicked for a majority of this match. Fuda came in and did some offense here and there, but it was largely just a complete beatdown of Daiki Yanagiuchi up until the spot where they mirrored what they did at Gate of Bayside, where this time it was Ishin. Fuda goes for the schoolboy as Daiki launches off the top rope and hits a Meteora. I should note, with Mochizuki, it was a flawless schoolboy Meteora counter. With Fuda, it was not. And Ishin took a disgusting amount of knee to the face on that move. But they do that. Ishin kicks out. And then that's when Daiki hits the ropes. He does the Gucci Rocket, but Kato meets him in midair with a box attack to the head. The sound that box made was so incredible. The box disintegrated. Daiki falls to the floor. It was so violent and so sudden and so unexpected. And then from there, they all brawl on the floor. As they get closer to the 20 count, they all start making their way back in. Kato's up on the apron. And at that point, right before he can get in the ring, Daiki Yanagiuchi takes that same box, what was left of it, hits him in the knees. Kato falls to the floor. Daiki rolls in. He wins the match. It's not the finish that we thought it was going to be. I do have to wonder when he's going to pin somebody because, man, did this seem like the moment to do it. But even with that in mind, it still felt like a massive win for the fan base and a really, really fun moment.
Yeah, and I think that's really what this match's goal was. Like, yeah, it wasn't the flash pin, but maybe the idea is, and we've seen him like slowly progress, that maybe the idea April, May, then we're going like, oh, are one of the flash pins going to catch at this point, now knowing that he has potential to do that. And maybe this is just like a step that we didn't see coming with it,
Yeah, it's tough because it was this 2-year anniversary. It's this 4-month-long feud with Kato. It all felt like it should have been building to this. And the only comp I can make is it had a little bit of a Tyler Black Ring of Honor World Championship thing where you might have missed your moment to make something really special. It doesn't mean that when the moment eventually comes, it's not going to register as a big deal, but it does feel like they might have missed the right exact window in this match to not just have him get his first pinfall win.
No, that's entirely fair, but a great moment nonetheless. And we kind of went to intermission, Case, and we had like this kind of aspect that the first half of the show was really underpinning like the idea of, okay, Inferno and Shun, and it seems like this is going to be like kind of going forward. But we had in this pre-intermission match Paradox Susumu, Kagatora, and Naruki Doi versus Shun, Kai, and Hamare. Just like a brawl that goes to the outside, and then what do we hear? The klaxons start going off. It's March. Gianni Valletta is back in Dragon Gate.
I'm all for it, baby. I think they have hit such a home run with this guy. The way that he's booked, I think he leaves at the right time. I think he comes back at the right time. I'm beyond fascinated by the fact that he called out Susumu Yokosuka in his first promo. After he did a big beatdown of the Young Boys and gave the Iron Claw and the King Kong knee drop to Sujiguchi.
Did you see that bump that Sujiguchi took on that?
Fantastic.
Just murdered the kid.
Yeah, no, I'm so into this act. It's so old school. I wish. I mean, I don't think you would disagree with this, but like Mike, we don't really have a lot of sideshow giant, like I'm talking in terms of literal size, giant attractions in wrestling at this point. Somehow Dragon Gate might have the best version of this with Valletta because of the way that he's protected and the way that he leaves and then comes back.
Yeah, because like the initial buzz off Bozilla kind of like went away in Marigold.
No, not Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame candidate Rossi Ogawa.
I know, right? And then
I by the way, sorry to distract for 1 second. I've always said I have nothing against Stardom. I don't watch the promotion because I don't have time. I am so fascinated by Stardom's business recovery, and because Rossi annoys me the way that he does, I think I'm going to try to make some time for Stardom. I want to experience what those fans are going through right now because it feels like a real win for the people that really care about that promotion. And just post Rossi, I'm very happy for them.
Yeah, and the vibes like Marigold versus Stardom, like it is worth just so you can have like the point of comparison. Just like dip your toe in for a second and then just go straight to Stardom.
Okay, I'm really the Stardom fans during the pandemic bugged the shit out of me because that promotion hadn't accomplished anything and we were treating it like it was 90s All Japan, and that got to me. But I respect what they do. I respected what they did then. I felt like people were discussing it in a way that wasn't entirely accurate. But post Rossi, the way that they've rebounded, that is a feel good story in wrestling. That is a success story, and I'm gonna try to dip my toe into that water here sooner rather than later.
Hey, I mean, look at what else you watch that you dislike, and take time and discover something new.
I've enjoyed the wrestling in 2025. I think Dragon Gate's been very good. I think CMLL has been great. I like what I've seen from DDT. I feel very comfortable with my level of New Japan viewing right now. The things that I don't watch are All Japan because I think it's a little boring, and Noah because I don't trust it. But good for AEW. I think has been great. I'm very into the wrestling right now.
It felt like we had a couple slow months, at least for me, wrestling wise.
I think we're lacking high end stuff this year, but I'm comfortable with the through line that we're at. I know the answer to this is no, but I am going to put you on the spot. Did you watch the Torneo de Escuela stuff from CMLL yet?
I have it on my list. I got through Fantastica Mania yesterday.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But which, by the way, Inferno versus Mystico is going to figure probably my top 5 matches of the year.
Mystico, pretty fucking good at this. The Torneo de Escuela stuff you'll enjoy. I've recommended it to so many people this week that don't maybe keep up with CMLL week to week because it's an easy thing to gloss over. All I'll say on it, and then you go back to Bozilla and Gianni Valletta and kind of where we're at. But the concept is so refreshing because it's the type of thing that wasn't done on Nitro, thus it will never be done in America, at least on a major screen, on a major platform. And CMLL has found stars through this program. It has been so exciting to see it evolve because when I started following CMLL, this was one of the concepts that really jumped out to me because, again, it was so fresh. It was so unique. It was such an interesting concept to me. This was the best year ever. More power to them. The finals of the tournament is really, to me, the only thing you need to watch. It is excessive. It is long. It is bloated. And it's supposed to be. And because of that, it is so much fun. I highly recommend you check it out.
Yeah, no, it's just like on the list and I need to get to it. But
Good.
And it's just like a neat thing that is just completely into themselves, right? Like they're the only promotion that's vertically integrated to be able to have an opportunity to even encourage something like this.
Yeah, I mean, with the ID program now, not that I would ever encourage this, but hypothetically they could do something like this. There's no reason with the resources that AEW has and with the way that hypothetically they think about wrestling, that they couldn't mirror this in some form or fashion, even if it's with, you know, MJF sponsoring a group of 3 guys and Hangman sponsoring another group of 3 guys, and, you know, more so less schools taking rosters, but more like mentorship programs. There are ways to do this, but again, it didn't happen on Nitro, so it's not going to happen in America.
Yeah, no, it's a shame.
But Valletta's back, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, and Valletta is booked to face Shuji Ishikawa at Shun Skywalker Produce coming up at the end of the month.
And that should be fantastic.
Yeah. It's just the amount of Valletta, like when he came back, I went and looked and it's like, no, it makes sense. We'll have him for a couple months, and then probably right after Dead or Alive, he'll go back to Malta or wherever he goes, and you know that'll be a perfect dash of Valletta for the next few months.
And that's all you need, and then it'll come back in probably September and do it all over again, and that's all you need. It's you know, the territory system worked for a reason, and somehow Dragon Gate is the group that has figured that out with Gianni Valletta.
When we got back from intermission, we had the Paradox team's first match of Rey de Parejas, Yamato and BB Hulk, Yama Hulk, back together again. This time, they're going up against Animal Japan, Hyo and Kirishio Tokyo Japan. First flash on Hyo getting the win for Yama Hulk. They get to 2 points, and now we kind of know Hyo's role on this team, don't we?
Yeah, it is. He's going to have a lot of weight on his shoulders, let me tell you.
Yeah, this is where I really got into the idea of Yamato did not respect Kirishio Japan at this match, and just the idea that he's paying for his fandom, and it happened here again.
Yeah, I did not enjoy this.
Yeah, it was a shtick fest towards the end, and then we had our main event of the March Korakuen. They opened the Twin Gate champions Jason Lee and Kota Minoura at 1 point versus Yuki Yoshioka and Dragon Dia at 0 points. It was a gear shift Golden Rose win for the champs after another belt shot. And I think I like this match a good deal more than you guys.
I thought it was very good. I went 3 3/4 on it, but you seem to be higher on it than I was.
Oh, I was 4, so I was expecting you to say you were only 3 1/4 because
no. I mean, I would have gone 3 1/2 on his return match, 4 on the Rey de Parejas kickoff show, and then 3 3/4 on this.
Okay, that's fair. I kind of love the idea of Dia as the heater and Yoshioka working babyface in peril, and I think it's such a charming turn on how the team really was in 2022 and 2023, and I think that's why I came away from this match a lot more positively, because I was like, oh, it's a hot tag to Dragon Dia of all people. Didn't expect this.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But elsewhere in the work, I mean, as you said and you kind of alluded to, everything with Jason and D Courage was great. The Minoura moments, he did not stick out as much as he did in the 4 heel match, I feel like.
No, I would agree with that.
And that was the Korakuen, but case we had one more show that happened. It's time now. Dragon Gate Network now has a much more comprehensive schedule coming up for this March, as it was announced today that they will be having the show from Yokohama. It looks like Saitama. They've officially announced that Tsuyahashi will be on tape delay. Himeji will be live. Gifu will be live, as well as the Shun Skywalker Quest. And we got that kicked off with this Yokohama show from the Radiant Hall and 2 other tournament matches. But before we get to tournament matches, let's kind of talk about the new situation we have here, Case.
Yeah, so just to summarize that a little bit, so we're going to for sure get the March 10th show on a tape delay, and then the March 20th and the March 23rd shows live. The Rey de Parejas matches on those shows. March 10th is Dia and Yoshioka versus Susumu and Kagatora, Yamato and BB Hulk versus Shun and Hamare, and Strong Machine J and KZ versus Hyo and, of course, Jiro. 320, which is live, is going to be Dia and Yoshioka versus Ishin and Kato, Sahara and Mochi versus Hyo and Jiro, and Hulk and Yamato versus Strong Machine J and KZ. And then that 323 show is going to be Dia and Yoshioka versus Yanagiuchi and Fuda, and Susumu and Kagatora versus Jason and Kota. Like you were referencing, as of the time we're recording, if you go on the Dragon Gate Network, they have graphics made for the March 6th show, which would have featured Jason and Kota against Jackie and Rita, and also Hyo and Jiro versus Benkei and Mochizuki Jr. No one has referenced those shows being on the network other than the network graphics themselves. So I don't know what to make of that, but at the very least, we will have more Rey de Parejas footage than initially expected.
Yeah, and at least from what we saw from Yokohama, it's an interesting way that they did it. It's all up as single matches on the network. There's a good deal of editing that happened, but really what is noticeable is they've cut out most of the prolonged entrances unless there is a jump that happens during the entrance, and sometimes during dead moments they edit that out. It still felt like that you were getting at least the representative point of matches, I would say.
Yeah, I'm bummed by any clipping, but it didn't seem dramatic on these uploads, but it was noticeable.
It was noticeable, but I don't think it was noticeable enough to like not be able to evaluate the matches.
Correct.
But yeah, on the show, there was more of your D Courage and Z Brat stuff, including Dai Inferno appearance in a Madoka Kakuta singles match. But we had 2 tournament matches and one other match that we're going to touch on quick, just so that we have this down. Kamei and Rita versus Ishin and Kato. It was an inside cradle win for Ishin, pulling them to 3 points. It was all right, I feel like, but it just did not necessarily reach the matches that we've seen those 2 teams have had so far this tournament.
Very fun sprint, I thought, but nothing outstanding.
But the semi-main event, D Courage, Yuki Yoshioka, Dragon Dia, and Ryoya Tanaka versus Shun Kai and Hamare. Again, this is in Yokohama, so it's Kai's hometown. Dia rolls up Shun Skywalker after the bizarre Kota Minoura cookie sheet scream.
Yeah, no, this was a really fun, chaotic brawl. It was everything that we've missed from the YouTube uploads that we haven't had for a year now. Basically, it all came flooding back in this match. It was like, oh, that's right. That's why I really like this format of Dragon Gate. Was for whatever reason it just seems a little more lively. Things jump off the page a little bit more, and we got what ended up being an incredibly consequential finish to the storyline going forward.
Yeah, and it just felt like, okay, this would have been not having this aspect of the storyline would have been a real bummer. So being able to have that felt very consequential. And the main event we had at Rey de Parejas night 3 was KZ and Strong Machine J at 2 points versus Benkei and Mochizuki Jr. at 2 points. But the pride of Yokohama, Strong Machine J, got the win with the machine suplex. This was easily the match of the night, and at least for me at this point, felt like it might have been the match of the tournament at this rate.
I did not have it as high as, say, the Sahara match from Korakuen or the main event from the Osaka show, but I would have it at 3 3/4 and a little bit behind those. But no, it was, again, thank goodness we saw it. It was another outstanding Mochizuki Jr. performance, and Strong Machine J, at least on the surface, appears to be back and firing on all cylinders.
We got a new variation of Benkei's concussion spot.
yes, we did.
Yeah,
very good.
For long-time fans, of course, Final Gate 2020 is remembered for the disbands match, but it's also remembered for the match that Benkei got concussed in the finish. And Benkei now has decided in a 5-year sense to work that concussion spot into every single one of his matches. This time it was a KZ elbow smash, stopping the spear.
And it looked devastating.
Yeah, no, but it rocked. It was so good to see. I feel really good about Strong Machine J. Like they're at 4 points in the tournament so far, and I feel like that in a unit where for like the first time really ever, we have a lot of questions about. It felt very reassuring to see Strong Machine J back and natural vibes, at least to be at 3 right now.
I would agree with that.
I do not see a graphic up after Saitama to read the current standings, but we'll get with those next week. Case, I'm looking at our run sheet right now. What else did you want to touch on before we got out of here?
I've got one more thing that I'm going to mention real quick, which is that next week we will have the beginning of our new Rewind and Rewatch series. I won't say what that topic is yet, but Mike, I think it's safe to say a a long-running episodic series will begin that I think is going to spotlight perhaps some untold stories in history that I'm quite excited to begin next week. And those episodes will likely be going forward once a month, but we will kick that off next week.
Right, and it will be in the VoiceGate feed. So
Yes, it will.
a lot like how we had during COVID, the Dragon Gate USA series happen on the same feed as the week-to-week Dragon Gate stuff. This new series, you don't have to do anything with your podcast app. If you subscribe to the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, it will be there. If you subscribe to just Open the Voice Gate, it will be there too. But just watch the space and get forward. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope everyone else does too.
I am too. The research for this has been a ton of fun. Obviously we did the Dragon Gate USA stuff, which was sort of the impetus for this. We've talked about the career of Masato Yoshino at length, before he retired, same deal with Kness. And then for Dragon Gate 25 last year, we did monthly episodes highlighting some of the biggest moments and biggest feuds and biggest matches and shows in Toryumon and Dragon Gate history. This is going to be a slight pivot from that. I would say it more will follow the format of the Dragon Gate USA shows. It will be a long-running project. It's going to take us a while to get through this, not only just with our recording schedules and what we can watch in a certain amount of time, but there's going to be quite a bit of history to cover here. But I am really excited. You and I have been doing work behind the scenes on this for almost 3 months now, and we're going to record the first episode next week and have that out, and it's going to be a really fun project, I think.
Yep, and we can't wait to have that ready to show you all that. So just get ready for that. Next week, you could follow us on social media at Open VoiceGate. Case is at _ in your case. I'm at Fujiheya. If you want to join the Voices of Wrestling Discord, it's the best place to talk about Dragon Gate on the internet. We have a Dragon Gate channel as well as Open the VoiceGate channel, which more things about this new series will kind of be posted there, as well as like our past episodes, show notes, match links, stuff like that. It's all at the Voices of Wrestling Discord. But that's going to do it for this week on Open the Voice Gate. We will be back with you next week with something brand new. Have a good week, everyone. Take care.
My name is Tyler Fornes, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Good, the Bad, and the Hungy AEW podcast here on the Voice of Wrestling Podcasting Network. We take a broad scope approach to the world of All Elite Wrestling and the entire universe of Tony Khan. We talk about the big matches, the big stars, the promos, the storylines. And we also look at it from a big picture perspective. How are things going to change over the course of the next 10 years with AEW still in the picture? How are companies like WWE going to adapt and adjust to AEW? Are they going to be a similar way like they did with WCW in the late 1990s? Will there be a counterpunch? We talk about all of that and more on The Good, the Bad, and the Hungy every week on the Voice of Wrestling Network.